Listen. So Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's pretty much like fan film the movie, where it feels like a Comic-Con of the franchise that was just put to film. But look, I had a blast with it. There's definitely a lot in the movie that makes absolutely no sense, and, there's no denying that the entire thing is a commercial.
It's a very toyetic property.
But personally, I've always seen it as a goofy paranormal comedy that really isn't that serious, so I think it delivers on those fronts, and I think it's a fun popcorn flick, but it is one of those that has more Easter eggs than April, so if that's not your thing, then maybe don't pick up the call, because from here on out, we're going to be digging into full spoilers. Let me explain.
I'm Ivan Reitman, director of Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, better known as Dad.
And I'm his son, Jason Reitman.
So this is a movie about the kids of the Ghostbusters, made by the kid of the guy who did Ghostbusters. In fact, Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, originally appeared in the first movie, but was cut out. So of course, now that he's directing, dude just cut himself back into the movie through some news coverage flashbacks, because, that cameo of him busting the Busters' balls in 2 wasn't enough.
My dad says you guys are full of crap. Jason,
Well, some people have trouble believing in the paranormal.
No, he just says you guys are full of crap, and that's why you went out of business.
That said, I do think he's a solid director, and it's really fitting for him to pick up the mantle the same way that the characters in the story would be doing that as well, especially considering that he's the same age his dad was when he did the first.
There was a moment where I just saw this girl in my head. She was 12 years old, and she was picking up a proton pack in the middle of a field, and I didn't know who she was. And then I saw this teenage guy, and he was in Ecto 1, and he was drifting through wheat fields, and I didn't know who he was. And when Harold Ramis passed away, I suddenly knew who they were. They were the Spenglers, and I knew I needed to tell this story.
So right off the bat, it's clear that the movie serves 3 purposes. 1, to sell toys. 2, to be a touching tribute to the late Harold Ramis, who helped write the story, as they continue the legacy of his character through his grandkids. And 3, to sell more toys. And while I don't think you need to see the first to enjoy this one, the entire thing is filled with more echoes in underground New York, or, as Jason puts it,
throughout the film, you're going to be finding all these kind of mirror images to the 84 films.
There's the fact that the entire farmhouse was built from scratch, which I think is really cool. So they were able to stuff it with a bunch of callbacks to Egon, such as his collection.
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
There's parallels for everything down to the glasses, the uniforms, the head gestures, the iconic PKE meter, which leads Phoebe down the fire pole to his lab, in a house that's clearly seen paranormal activity, causing these books to stack up higher than their merch sales. And it was funny to see this man was reading a Legion. There are similar couch deaths like we saw with Dana in the first movie, but whereas she got possessed, this man got pressed. There's shots of the OG traps, Egon's brain scanning strainer, and that ooey gooey toaster that I guess is still keeping this man company.
We've been running tests to see if we can get an equally strong positive reaction.
What kind of test? You're not sleeping with it, are you, Ray?
There's also a long piece of metal in Phoebe's room that calls back to Egon's childhood.
We had part of a slinky, but I straightened it.
There's callbacks to the Stay Puft mural that's made it all the way out here in the middle of nowhere. It's just funny to think that the PR team is still pushing it, specifically doubling down on the big marshmallow that destroyed a lot of New York. Ivan Reitman's Cannibal Girls continues to get some theatrical showings like we saw in Ghostbusters 2, and the same streaks from the originals were literally scanned off the 70mm prints in order to copy the purple rays and reuse them for this reboot. And of course, you know that there's always going to be a jail scene.
Who you gonna call?
Dan Aykroyd, who, no lie, practically gives her a whole LME over the call. He really just reflects back on his glory days and calls out an actor who's bought out all of Tribeca, which could be Robert De Niro since he pretty much owns a lot of Tribeca, the film festival, everything around there. And I guess he's mad that he didn't get the firehouse back, but it also sounds similar to a sequel idea that never came to fruition about the team having to face a real estate tycoon who goes by Lucifer. And considering how many more buildings have built around Central Park, I think he has a solid story to go back to if he takes it back to New York. But if you know anything about the previous movies, then you would know that those proton packs also pretty much weighed the size of Mckenna.
I always hated this part of the business.
They're very heavy.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, they have like 20-pound ones, and then they have the lighter ones, so they're still like 10.
They're like half the weight in what they were in 1984. Bill Murray actually came on set and lifted one of them up and like went up to Ivan Reitman, who's the original director, and went, Ivan, why don't we have proton packs this light?
But what's interesting is that they gave her a special switch in order to be able to use her blaster. But in terms of collectibles, I didn't know that most of these models, ever since the original, never displayed a switch that's meant to be there to power on the pack.
Switch me on.
And after 30 years, they finally included it, and it caused New York Comic Con to go crazy over a switch.
Switch me on.
Phoebe learns a lot about her past through her call with Ray, but also through her computer, as she sees a recommended video Easter egg of Adam Savage, who actually has some of the best behind the scenes to the movie. And this is a man who's so dedicated to the point that I've never seen a dude with a ruler as a tattoo until I saw Adam meet another props guy.
1 3/4.
Yeah.
We can convert.
Ray's occult store from the second Ghostbusters also appears, making the second one canon, even though it's kind of weird that absolutely no one recalls that one time that, the Statue of Liberty came to life and walked. But they do say that it's been 30 years since the last ghost sighting, which would time up perfectly to that movie's release, and really just straight up ignores the 2016 remake. Like, I don't know if it's completely been omitted, if it's just vanished to thin air, but it is a Sony product. They have been dabbling in multiverses, even giving a shout out to the Firehouse in the Spider-Man games. Plus, Jason has teased a bit about Phoebe's shirt, which could end up being a reference to the multi-dimensions, as seen in the animated episode Brooklyn Triangle, which focuses on Winston, and the ending credits are kind of teasing that he's going to carry the mantle. The only crazier thing than what they do with the CGI in the third act, in my opinion, is the peak consumerism we've reached. At this point, nostalgia has been packaged to the point that people can't tell what's their childhood and what's a commercial, because really, Ghostbusters blasted so that Stranger Things could stream.
Robert Gozueta, the ex-chairman and CEO of Coca-Cola, he didn't like the movie until he saw the $250 million blip in their revenues, and he was very happy.
So of course, even though the emphasis is on Somerville being a dumb town in the middle of nowhere, they still have a pristinely stocked Walmart that's open 24/7. Yes, seeing a box of Cheez-Its is in fact an ad, but it's also proof that Egon was still munching on new theories to stop the apocalypse. The Twinkies and the Crunch Bars will last longer than a proton pack, but they've also kind of become synonymous with Egon, to the point that fans actually memorialized Harold after his passing by placing them at the real-life Firehouse station.
That's a big Twinkie.
Baskin-Robbins clearly knows something about Paul Rudd, because this man's going to be eating it for the next 31 movies. They go full throttle with their Ford pickup at the farm, blast away in a Cadillac, all while the character's wearing a Chevy shirt, and finally, the Mini Puffs, which, honestly, they're genius. Look, the best way to go big after being huge is to go small. Look at Baby Groot, It's only a matter of time before they get ultra annoying and push the plushies, a streaming service, a slew of Facebook memes that haunt you more than the Minions, to the point that they've already made it the logo in the red circle. They're already in chicken commercials, so toss that new Hot Wheels and boom, you got a big slate of toys for the holidays.
Toyetic property.
The second act starts dealing with the dead walking, giving some call-outs to similar looking ghouls from the first, but one of the big reasons they claimed that the real Slimer didn't appear here was because he's supposed to be a resident of New York, so instead we get Muncher, voiced by Josh Gad, who I guess is supposed to represent the Midwest. But look, if there's one thing Papa Reitman was right about, was the slime.
More slime, less slime.
I wanted more slime. I think slime was an important iconographic idea to the movie.
Now, I will have a whole timeline video connecting a lot of the ghost-busting lore, but a quick rush-through takes you back to Ivo Shandor, who pretty much created this town of Somerville, which is a nice little nod to the Sumerian gods that he worships. This dude, since the first movie, has pretty much prayed for an apocalypse because he believed the earth has to be cleansed. And it's in this town where he gathered all the materials he needed as an architect, fronting his Shandor mining company as a way to gather all the stuff he needed for his fancy buildings up in New York.
This roof cap is made of a magnesium tungsten alloy.
The whole building is a huge superconductive antenna that was designed and built expressly for the purpose of pulling in and concentrating spiritual turbulence.
Fun fact, he's also played by J.K. Simmons, who's appeared in pretty much all of Reitman's films, down to Whiplash, which Jason actually produced, so that's pretty cool to see, but here he only shows up for a split second. Shandor's mine's also supposed to parallel the building from the first one that ends up being the breeding ground for the main baddie Gozer. It's this James Charles-looking ghoul who, with the help of its gatekeeper and keymaster, hound down two hosts, but as always, in order to secure a sequel, it ends up getting busted, and this time around by these meddling kids.
Hey, have you missed us?
Now, of course, with Harold's passing in 2014, a movie dealing with the afterlife is riding that fine line of bringing back a deceased actor with the magic of CGI. And look, to me, that's never not going to be weird, but I guess it makes sense in terms of the storytelling, since it deals with ghosts, and you end up seeing these final goodbyes that, look, I thought they were a little sentimental, especially when you consider that this is a series that always dips their own personal lives and opinions into the script. Even more so, you look at the fact that Jason grew up on set with Harold Rami's kids to the point that he showed it to them, and it really wraps up a movie that's meant to be a dedication to the man. So it's not just them saying farewell to Egon, but to Harold, where Aykroyd says goodbye to his co-writer, as his character wishes he believed in him more.
And I looked as he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became as black as sackcloth.
where Winston, who's become a super successful businessman, still regrets not calling him more, in the same way that Ernie Hudson, the actor, always found solace in Harold through all the crazy stuff he went through while filming.
Harold, throughout the filming of Ghostbusters, whenever there was things that I had difficulty understanding, and there were times, Harold, was always a guy I'd sort of go to and go, man, what is, and he'd go, Ernie, it's okay.
And Murray, well, I'm so surprised Bill showed up. There is a mid-credit scene that recalls how Peter Venkman abused his power, and it was no shock to see Sigourney appear again since she was also game for the 2016 reboot, but there's also a complete after-credits sequence that begins with a deleted scene of the coin exchange between Egon and Janine from the first that ends up leading into the present, with Janine and Winston talking about the Ghostbusters, as he takes the Ecto-1 back to the firehouse and hopes the producers call back for a sequel. That said, if they do, they better bring back Rick Moranis for the next one.
So you live alone?
I used to have a roommate, but my mom moved to Florida.
Thank you all for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did it pander too much? Did you love the Easter eggs? Which ones did you catch? Because I know, considering how big the project is and seeing how crazy they went into the props, there's going to be a lot more that are going to be discovered. Even the director's discovering them.
I'm still spotting Easter eggs in this film because every crew member was hiding stuff on set.
But also considering the runtime, I definitely think this is going to be one of those ones that it's going to get an extended cut, because I noticed a lot of actors here that I recognize from Generation and Reservation Dogs. They appeared, but they didn't really have lines, not to mention a bunch of shots that are in the trailer that just don't appear in the movie. So I think that the 4K release should be stacked. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Like I said, I'm going to have a whole timeline video that I'm working on as well, going from Ghostbusters 1 to a little bit of what happened in 2016, and then this last one over here, just to see how it all plays out. But until next time, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this one. What other movies are out there that you're interested in, especially with all the Thanksgiving releases that are coming up? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll send you a Twinkie.